Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have another book review for you, and that is for Of Darkness and Dawn by Wight. This is the second book in the Elder Empire Shadow trilogy, and the fourth book of the Elder Empire that I have read. I've been alternating between these, doing a C book, then a Shadow book, and so I've read the first two C books, and this is the second Shadow book that I have read. And so after this I'll be reading C3 and then Shadow 3. And so far, I have really enjoyed this series a lot. I have loved a lot of things about it. I've enjoyed a lot of the character stuff. I've really loved the world building and things like that. And so I was really looking forward to getting into this book specifically because the first Shadow book, which was called Of Shadow and Sea, was my favorite book in the series up to this point. And so I was really looking forward to getting back to this specific storyline because for those who don't know, the Sea trilogy follows the character Calder Martin, kind of from like a seafaring kind of angle, and then the Shadow trilogy follows some assassin characters, and so it's kind of these two sides of the same story that cross over at several points. And as far as the first book in each trilogy, I preferred the Shadow book, and so I was really looking forward to continuing that with the second one. And I will say, even though I liked this book, I still think it was good. This was definitely my least favorite of the series so far. It was okay. But that's pretty much it. So I'm probably not going to have a huge amount to say about this book, to be quite honest, but we'll talk about it. So first things first, obviously, get some good stuff out of the way. I do still think the characters are well done here. That is one thing that I've consistently enjoyed across the series, even though I don't think the characters individually are super memorable most of the time. Although there are one or two exceptions, I think in this book specifically, that I really enjoyed. One of which I can't even remember the name of, but I know who it is. I haven't loved most of the characters, but I've enjoyed all of them, and I've enjoyed their interactions with each other, which was the case in this book as well. This book splits its narrative, as do the other books, between past and present, going into flashbacks. This book primarily, the flashbacks were like 5 years into the past or something, with a few outliers. There was some like 20 years ago, some that were a little less than that, things like that, but most of them were like 5 years ago at the time of the book taking place, and then the rest of the book was in the present day, and things like that. And I really enjoyed the character interaction, especially in the flashbacks between several of the assassin characters as well as the Emperor. I really enjoyed them all together a lot. But the assassin characters in general, I think, are a lot of fun in this series. And so that's one aspect of this book and this particular side of this series that I really enjoy. I also really enjoyed the way that the world building was used in this book. There's not a whole lot of really extensive world building in this book, not the way there were in the first book of each trilogy. But I did love the way that it was used because there are some very interesting applications of the magic system in this book. The magic in this world, one of the aspects of it is there's these characters who can use the magic called reading, and basically are able to read objects or things like that and kind of see their history, their purpose, all kinds of things of that nature. And there are certain ways that reading is used in this book that was really interesting, especially again in regards to the Emperor in the flashback stories or flashback chapters. If you happen to have read this book before, then you may know what I'm talking about with that. There was some really cool stuff with that going on in this book, and things like that. There's just, the world building wasn't expanded much in this book. Obviously you get a bunch of that front loaded in the first entry in each of the trilogies. The second C book had a bit more world building, but still not a lot. This one felt like it had the least amount, although maybe it was just because I've read so much of the series already that I'm just kind of aware of what everything is. But it didn't feel like it had much expansion on the world building, but I really liked the way that the world building was used in this book, in terms of the magic, in terms of other aspects of the world building, things like that, stuff with the Grey Elders, which as always I'm super interested in, and things like that. I like the way that that was done. in here, and I really enjoyed the storyline of the flashbacks in this book, or at least part of them. Some of the flashbacks, as I said, some of them follow the Emperor alongside these assassin characters, and I really liked that side of the story because there was some interesting stuff going on there. That said, to start getting into some negatives, I did not care much for the present storyline in this book. It was fine, but nothing really happened that stuck out to me. And even the major events in this book, like I said, these two trilogies converge at multiple points, and so you have certain events that are depicted in both trilogies, and of which there are a few in this book that are also depicted in of Dawn and Darkness, its kind of companion book. And I felt that those moments in both of the cases that I'm specifically thinking of, because there's two major things in this book that I really, or in the second book of each of these trilogies, that I really liked in terms of the present storyline, two major events that I thought were really cool. And in both of those cases, I thought that it was much more powerfully presented in the companion book, not in this one. In this one, it felt like it was just kind of, oh, that happened, let's move on. It didn't feel like it had the impact it was supposed to. Now, granted, maybe that's because I already knew it was coming, but I think that, there were certain moments in the first book of each trilogy. I read the first C book, then I read the first Shadow book, and the parts of the first Shadow book that I had already read in the C book still had the impact to me, and they didn't in this one, which was weird and unfortunate. But, the storyline in this one just didn't really grab me that much in general. That's kind of my main downside with this book, is that even though there were some cool sequences in this book, some cool chapters, I enjoyed some of the flashbacks, all that stuff, there's not much about this book that really feels like it stands out to me as very memorable or exciting. It's a lot of just, enjoyable to read. I enjoy this series. I enjoy spending time in this series, in this world. So even if I'm not loving everything going on, I still enjoy reading the book, the process of reading it, and things like that. But nothing really stood out to me as super memorable, except for stuff that was done better in the other book, and to a lesser degree, I would say also the flashbacks that I did enjoy, but even then, that's only a handful of chapters out of the book that I was really, really excited about. And some character stuff, some character interactions were pretty fun, some cool things about certain characters, certain aspects of those characters were interesting. Certain aspects of the way the world building was presented was cool, but as far as like how much I think this book will stick with me, I don't think it really will, whereas the other books all had certain things about them that I think, I read the first book in each trilogy several months ago now, and there are things about both of those books that have stuck with me all this time, and I just don't think that this book really has that kind of lasting impact for me. And as I was reading it, just nothing really exciting was happening. There was nothing in it that really grabbed my attention, which is the main downside for this book. So to kind of wrap up my thoughts, I did enjoy this. Again, like I said, I enjoy this series, so I enjoy each of these books, even though I don't love everything that's going on necessarily. But this one just felt like the one that had the least interest to me, even though I did still enjoy it. There just wasn't much that happened that I was really excited about. And there would be like little glimpses of things, like I said, that happened in the other book, where I'd be like, oh, I love this part. And it just didn't have the same impact on this side of the story, which was unfortunate. Even like parts that probably could have had the same impact, I think, just didn't for some reason, just the way that they were depicted. I don't know what it is. But this one just didn't really stick out to me, didn't have much in it that I really was super into. It was good, but nothing amazing. So as far as a rating out of 10 that I would give of Darkness and Dawn, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. It was good, it was decent, but it was definitely the low point of the series so far for me. And I feel bad giving it this low of a rating. I probably could be persuaded to give it a 7 if I really wanted to, but this one just didn't have really much to it that I was really into. So 6.5 is still a good score. I would consider, anything above a 5 to basically be good, or at least kind of a net positive. And so, it's a good book, but compared to the rest, it doesn't quite have the same impact to me, which is unfortunate. But I'm still looking forward to continuing this series. I now have 2 books left. I have the last book of each trilogy, which I'm very excited about. I've heard good things about the way that this series ends, so I'm looking forward to that at least. So that's pretty much all I've got to say about the book. Let me know in the comments if you have read it before and what you thought of it. If so, if this was also the low point of the series for you, if you happen to really enjoy this book, whatever you thought, let me know in the comments, and you can be expecting to see reviews for the final books in each trilogy later this year. Probably not anytime real soon, but probably towards the end of the year is when I'm thinking I'll finish this series. So you can be looking forward to that later this year. So that's pretty much it for this video. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.